Well, good evening, everyone. This is Frank Fear, and happy 2025. We've been off for a couple of weeks. We're rare to get back in the saddle. I'm laughing because with the weather and everything else, we're having some technical issues. I see Mickey Plumley is in the back room, so I'm going to bring Mickey on. We're so pleased to have Greg, we hope, Greg Christ back with us. He's been under the weather for about a month, actually more than a month. But Greg just contacted me. He's having technical issues. We think the weather has a lot to do with that. And so we're just glad you're here, and we're glad we're back. And we're a lot of exciting things obviously happening in West Virginia football and also West Virginia basketball athletically in general. So let me bring my partner, Mickey Plumley, on the stage with me. You got in, Mickey.
Hey, yeah,
There he
that
is.
second link you sent me finally worked, Frank. Sorry, I was delayed getting in here.
It's all right. It's all right. Well, you've got some big news. You're not in Georgia anymore.
Not in Georgia anymore. We're not in Kansas anymore either, huh? Like Dorothy said. Yeah, I have relocated to Glade Springs, West Virginia. Sitting here, got in on Saturday. It was a beautiful day, and since then it's been 14 inches of snow. Currently it's about 4 degrees, and I think I'm going to be socked in here for a while.
Yeah, the weather is just, yeah, when you think about it, the snow is just putting everyone out of commission. And it's, I'm from the Buffalo area, and so we're used to lots of lake effect snow, and it's unusual to get this much snow farther south. And then you look at what's happening in California, my God, Los Angeles area with those fires, that my understanding is they're under control 0%. And so, yeah, the weather can be a real bummer, and it's happening right now. But it's good to see you. Good to have you back, and also good to have you back in West Virginia. Mount Hope, born and raised, and now back in the same general stomping grounds area, and that's just fantastic. Mickey, for some reason or another, I was mentioning to the group before you got on, Greg is having trouble accessing. I'm going to check my phone here in a second and see if there's news, but he's having trouble getting in. And our guest, who's out in Oklahoma, we hope, talked with Shaun earlier today, Shaun Pryor. We hope he'll be here later, but his segment wasn't scheduled until 7:30 anyway, so hopefully he'll be able to join us. And I've got to check too to see whether there are any technical issues on his end. But he does a podcast. He has his own studio, so unless there are weather issues, he should be with us. But otherwise, how you doing?
Doing good, trying to acclimate to the weather here. Big difference between I was playing golf on New Year's Eve in Atlanta in 60-degree temperature. Here it is, what, less than a week later, and I won't be playing golf for a while. I can tell you that. Frank, your volume is a little low here at my end. I don't know if you can do anything to adjust that or not. I'm having a little difficulty hearing you.
Is that better?
No, it's just about the same.
Okay, let me get over here and see
Let me
if I
turn up the
can.
volume on my end here.
Oh,
Yeah, I've got it up all the way.
Yeah, I've got it up all the way too. So, is that any better? Not any better? How about this? Is that any better?
No, sir, just about the same there.
Huh. I wonder
But we'll
why.
struggle through.
Yeah, for those that are watching, if there are problems with my audio, just let me know and I'll see what I can do. What I wanted to do, Mick, let's just dive into obviously the topics. Let me see. Here comes a comment that Kelly McCourt said the sound is coming through okay. So it must be at your end. But again, with the weather, you got all kinds of stuff going on. So
Yeah.
let's. What I want to do, if I can, is bring this up because let me see I had it up earlier today, and I want to bring it up if I can find it. Can't find it. Anyway, first thing we want to talk about. We'll see if I can find that banner in a few minutes. But obviously the big news in football, and we'll talk about that. That first is the coaching change with Rich Rodriguez, and we're excited about that. Coming in with a lot of enthusiasm. We were both, and I can include Greg in this too, big supporters of Neil Brown, but in the end, the body of work just wasn't there in terms of wins and losses. And I was talking with someone today, and it wasn't just the wins and losses, but how we were losing. was a major issue. But so let's start by talking about your overall impressions with Coach Rodriguez and your thoughts about the program. Former football player, I know you're very supportive, but share your thoughts.
Well, I am. I'm glad to see Rich Rod come back, Frank. You think back to those years of 2010, 2011, 2012 when he was here. I mean, he had 3 10-win seasons, went to 3 major bowl games. He just did a fantastic job before. I know there's a lot of bad feelings over the way he left, but there's a lot to that story, Frank,
Yeah.
as you and I have discussed, and it's not all on his shoulders, his departure from WVU. I'm glad to have him back personally. He's a Mountaineer, what we refer to as a true Mountaineer through and through. And it's exemplified by the staff that he's brought on as his assistant coaches and his assistant to the assistant coaches. So I'm looking for great things, maybe not immediately. As with any program, it takes a while to build a winner. Signetti at Indiana was very, very fortunate to do it in 1 year. And that may not happen with Rich. Of course, Coach DeFries has done it with the basketball team. So you never know. We may get fortunate here, bringing the right people at the right time and have a complete turnaround with 1 year. Although, caution is the better part of valor. Thinking back to the days when I played, as good as Jim Carlin and Bobby Bowden and those guys were, it took 3 years to turn the program around. And that's typical. Even with the portal and NIL today, it takes time to make your changes. They perhaps happen a little more rapidly in today's world than they did back then. I just hope everyone gives him a couple of years to get his system installed, to get all his coaches in line, an opportunity to do some recruiting. He was so far behind the 8 ball in terms of getting out there to get some athletes to sign. It was really a disadvantage for him and his coaching staff. I think under the circumstances, they've done as good as they possibly can. I know you've got some graphics prepared. We're talking about the influx of new and the outflux of the people leaving. But a lot of changes going on. But I think there's changes for the positive. If you're going to be pointing toward the future, I think you have to be positive. A long time ago, Frank, I decided to rip the rear view mirror off of my car because I'm not going in that direction.
Yeah, that's great. I like that. Good. I'll be using that phrase. I'll tell you. Good tagline. No, I think you're absolutely correct. And by the way, I'm sorry to say Greg will not be able to be with us tonight because of technology issues, but he's going to be watching. So, hi, Greg. Glad you're feeling better,
Yeah.
and we're looking forward to have you with us next week. And we've got an announcement about next week's show in a few minutes. But when I think about Rich Rodriguez, I wasn't in Morgantown when he left and all that happened. But I'll tell you this: that when we think about West Virginia, you think about he's a native son. He was successful, very successful. Should have been in the national championship game. Obviously, if it weren't for that incredibly lousy game against the outcome against Pitt when we were something like a 20-some point favorite. But he's been around. He knows Michigan, Arizona, Louisiana Monroe, and most recently Jack State and other places. And so he knows how to do it. And one of the things I think that I want to key off your point, and we talked about it earlier today when we talked, is I think the watchword is patience. One of the things that you and I talked about was, what Curt Signetti did at Indiana now has changed fans' expectations. He goes from James Madison, where he did very well, to Indiana. My God, I think Indiana has historically a losing record in football, and took that team, very competitive in the Big Ten, obviously, and took it all the way to the college football playoff. Well, he brought in 30 players in the portal, and a lot of those were former players at James Madison, and he whipped them up fast, and there you go. You can't view that as every other coach coming in, like Rich Rod, is going to be able to do the same thing. It might happen, but it can't be expected to happen. So I'm thinking about patience. He is obviously putting together his staff right now. He's starting to recruit players out of the portal. There hasn't been much movement with respect to the players that the Brown staff recruited, the high school players. There's been some. We'll look at one in just a few minutes that was a major loss to North Carolina State. But the fact of the matter is, you got an experienced hand here. He's been around the block more than once. He's been successful. He's not learning his way into anything. He already knows it. And so from that point of view, in fact, we can look at the staff now. We looked at this earlier. Here's Dave Gorby is saying, why are you guys doing this show without Chris? And Dave, that's what Dave's saying. I'm interpreting. But Dave's a good friend, and Dave was on a program with Coach Chris, and just love Dave, and we'll have him on the show soon. But here are the coaches, and what's interesting about this, and I hope we'll be able to have Shaun Pryor on, because he's from Oklahoma, and he's very familiar with Zach Alley, the new defensive coordinator, who is the star of the incoming group of coaches. Just left Oklahoma, University of Oklahoma as the DC. But if you look at that array of coaches, in red, you're going to see he brought, as you might expect, several coaches from Jack State. Ryan Garrett is going to be the wide receivers coach. Rhett Rodriguez is the quarterback coach. And then you've got William Green, defensive line, and you've got Henry Reinrich, who will be the Sam linebackers coach, along with Jeff Castile. But it's a pretty darn good lineup. And we talked about the fact that we did need to upscale our assistant coaching. I know you feel the same way, right, Mick?
I really do. I'm very pleased with the selections that he's made here with his assistant coaches. First of all, the defensive coordinator he snagged from Oklahoma has a reputation for being innovative, one of the brightest defensive minds in college football today. He and Rich Rod had worked together before, and now they have an opportunity to do so again. Cost us a pretty penny to get him, but I think he'll show that he's worth, every dollar. Particularly enthused about the West Virginians that he's brought back on the coaching staff. Noel Devine, tremendous asset in terms of what he accomplished at WVU. And as Wren said when he filled the positions, for someone to coach at West Virginia, they need to know the lay of the land. They need to know things like the fact that we don't have a professional football team in the state of West Virginia. We have 2 university teams. We have to have people that are dedicated, that have the blue-collar, coal miner, work hard, live hard sort of mindset. And I think the coaching staff that he's put together certainly represents that. Noel Devine, Clint Trickett coming back was very popular when he was a quarterback here. And so he's going to be a great addition to the staff, as well as the other people that he's brought on that he's had an association with in the past.
Yeah. Very good thoughts. In fact, I didn't mean to pass over Pat Kirkland, who was with Rich Rod at Jack State, but that's an important hire too. The special teams was better this year. It was a little bit less of a positive note in 23, but he comes in as a proven coach. One thing you and I were talking about today, and also with Greg, is something that is really new. It's not necessarily a new wrinkle, but the NCAA has changed their rules. And so you have the regular lineup of assistant coaches that you have up there, and there are still appointments that will be made. But then you have what's called assistant to the assistant coaches. And I'm not sure this is exactly the same as the old graduate assistant system. I don't think it really is. But the fact of the matter is, the NCAA has basically removed limitations with respect to the number of assistant to the assistants. And so, so what you have here, as you can see, when I showed this to a person today, they said, "Whoa, 10." And I'm not sure that list is complete. And what I did, and I mentioned it to, I think I mentioned it to you, Mick, I actually went right to the WVU athletic website to make sure that the information we were going to share tonight is accurate. And every single person on that list, including Noel Devine, is actually listed as an employee of West Virginia and is listed with the title that we have here officially for West Virginia. So, and it makes things a little bit confusing because if you, I think I've heard a lot of people say, well, he brought back Noel Devine to be the running backs coach. Well, he's the assistant running back coach. He's the assistant to the running back. Chad Scott is the running back coach. So essentially, Noel is on his staff. But one of the things that's really important about this, and I'll stop and get your thoughts, it gives young guys, and you mentioned Noel, I don't think Noel's ever coached at the college level before. It gives them a chance to really cut their teeth on in a major program like this, and then move up the system either at WVU or elsewhere. But that's a long list, and in almost every single assistant there is at least one assistant, and then what you have is you've got special team coordinator and assistant special team coaches. So you've got Chris Herring and you've got Tucker Donati, but you also, obviously, we talked about earlier, you've got Pat Kirkland. So your thoughts on that?
Well, in the final analysis, Frank, I'm not sure that there's much difference between the way things used to be and the way they are now. We just have different nomenclature for it. As you mentioned, they used to be known as graduate assistants. Now we call them assistants to the assistant. Whatever you call them, it's an opportunity for some of these fellows. And if you think back to my era, in the then and now vein, guys who turned out to be tremendous coaches got their start as a graduate assistant at WVU. Guys like Joe Pendry began his career as a graduate assistant, went on to be super offensive coordinator in the NFL for years and years and years, particularly with the Buffalo Bills. George Henshaw is another one that started out as a graduate assistant and then worked his way up, head coach at Tulsa University, coached many, many years with Bobby Bowden at FSU, and then went on to coach in the pros as well. So, these assistants to the assistants, I kind of look at them in some respects sort of like the practice team is to the regular starters on the team itself, because these are the guys that are there doing the nuts and bolts, the X's and the O's, the detailed work, following up with kids, making sure that they're getting the grades that they need to get, making sure that they get to study hall if they need to be in study hall, if they don't have the GPA to maintain their eligibility, make sure that when there's a recruit on campus, that person is paired up with the right people in order to try to improve the chances of that person coming. So these guys are doing a lot of the work behind the scenes that the average fan never sees. They see the coaches out there during spring practice, and they see them during the games, of course, on the sidelines. But few people are aware of all the turmoil, all the work, all the organization that has to go together behind the scenes in order to make this machine click like a well-oiled machine. So I think in time things change. For all time nothing changes, they say. I think we're right back where we used to be. We just have a different name for what we call these folks.
I think you're absolutely correct. There's a couple of other things I think that's related to this. Let me bring this up. We'll talk about the shift to the players right now, and I want to bring up a comment that I had put up before that David made, because I think it helps. You talked about the behind the scenes. David saying yes, Indiana brought in 30. Excuse me, that's the wrong. Let me see. Let me get the right. Here we go. Let me get the right comment. David
Sure.
saying that 30 were brought in at Indiana by Signetti, but 9 or 10 were added in the spring. Well, look, why is that? First of all, he came in after the season, just like Rich Rod's coming in. But you got another thing here that's very important. He really doesn't know what he has in terms of the players until they hit this field in this first spring practice. So he has to evaluate them, obviously, and some of them are going to leave, and he's going to have to bring in other players, even if a particular player doesn't leave. head coach may still want to increase the number in that particular room, whether it be linebackers or wide receivers. So now with the way the landscape is, a head coach like Rich Rodriguez, you're not just recruiting out of the portal right now. You repeat it after spring practice, but it's better because you know who you have. You have your players going through through winter drills, conditioning drills, and you see them on the field. And you can see in this case, Indiana ended up at the end of the day as ranked number 10 in the country in terms of portal activity, not just activity, quality of portal last year. And it wasn't just the fall, late year, early year activity. It was the whole body of work that included after spring. So we're going to see that. Now there's another comment. Let me take David's off, and let me put another comment up that was up a little. I saw it a little bit. Here it is from our good friend Mark Rogers. Neil Brown was criticized for signing Group of Five transfers. Rodriguez is doing the same. Hopefully it'll work out better. Unfortunately, he will not be given 6 years. Nobody's given 6 years these days. And again, Mark, in this, you're going to see this right here. I'll take Mark's comment down. You'll see it because the way we have this, and you and I talked about it earlier today, Craig, too. Yep. You've got the players and the positions. These are all 9 players who've signed at West Virginia. These are the incomers from the portal, okay? And you've got their names, the far left, their position, kicker, wide receiver, etc. Then you've got their star rating, and what's interesting is you've got 2 guys there with no ratings. Then where they came from, and so that column is important because only the ones in bold are power schools. You have 1 player, Ashton Woods, linebacker from UNC. That's a power school, North Carolina. Same thing with Jalen Henderson, a quarterback. May not end up playing quarterback, but he is for now. That's a power school, highly thought of. And then you've got Johnny Pascuzzi, tight end, a special teams guy from Iowa, who has no rating. And so, and what I'm seeing now, as you're getting the headlines, and I'm sure the fans have seen this, Mick, and you've seen it, we've talked about it, you're beginning to see more players come in from the power schools. So I think that when you hit the ground running, you can't hit top speed right off the bat. And so, again, going back to what David said, the body of work is really going to be determined and evaluated later, not on the 8th of January. That's for sure. And so I'm glad you brought up what you brought up because it feeds into the comment Dave Gorby made and also the comment that Mark Parsons made. This is just a starter list.
Sorry, I misunderstood that comment there, Frank.
I was going to say this is just a starter list. This
it
is
is.
Just
and
a starter.
If you're pragmatic about it, Frank, when you think about it, we're probably fortunate to do as well as we're doing here. You have wholesale changes in the coaching staff. You've got a team that went 6-7 last year. You're not going to find a transfer from Tennessee or Ohio State or Notre Dame or any of the major power schools that want to transfer it into an environment like that. A tribute to Neil Brown and the players that he brought in and developed are all being gobbled up by, the top teams in the country. Tribute to his ability to recognize talent, bring it on board. Unfortunately, I don't think, as you and I have discussed, he had the assistant coaching staff to develop that to produce the WL record that everybody wanted to see. So, there are a couple, I think, diamonds in the rough and the guys that are coming in. I'm real impressed with this freshman receiver that Rich Rod's bringing with him from Jack State. The kid had a fantastic freshman year. And the punter that they picked up from Tulane was one of the best punters in the nation last year. So there are a few gems in here. Certainly, we probably lost more than we gained, but you got to give it time. Like you said, we'll have a rerun of this after spring practice as well. See what we can pick up out of the portal at then. And then again, keep in mind, you mentioned Signetti's success at Indiana. I think about Coach Prime at Colorado. The first year he was there, he had great expectations. I think he let something like 55 guys go in the portal and brought in 55 new ones.
Yeah.
It wasn't
Yeah.
until the second year that he was able to show some results from all that turmoil in personnel.
Yeah.
But
No, yeah.
one thing Rich Rod is known for, it's recognizing talent and putting that talent in an offensive scheme where they can play to the best of their ability. So, hey, we'll go with what we got and take them on as they come up on the schedule.
Yeah, yeah. Just a couple. I agree with everything you said. It's spot on. You mentioned Cam Vaughn, who's in the second row there. He's one to watch. And if you look at the on three, and by the way, I think people who watch the show know when it comes to portal, we only refer to on3.com because and that should be on three, not on.3. It's on3.com. Is the Oh, wait a minute. We got Shaun Pryor here. I think Shaun's going to make it. We're going to bring him in here in a second. The on3.com is the gold standard. And so you can see their rating. And the two highest rated, Cam Vaughn is one. He had a spectacular year. He 49 receptions, 800 yards, 5 touchdowns, 17 yards per catch. So keep that name in mind. You're going to see him on the field, particularly with the losses we've had, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And then the other one to watch is Scruggs. Actually, he's considered to be, so far, by many evaluation sources, the number one recruit so far from South Alabama. He's an interesting story, Mickey, because West Virginia is his fourth school. He's worked his way up. He started at Division II Washburn, then he went to Central Missouri, and then South Alabama, and he's going to end his career at West Virginia. And you can see that Scruggs is rated by On3 as a 89. And, anybody who watches Mountaineer football knows, do we need help at the back end? You bet we do. And Jordan Scruggs is, I think, going to really, really help us in that regard. So these other guys are going to have to, obviously they all do, prove themselves. But it's also comforting that he brought with him some really proven guys other than Cam Vaughn from Jack State. Jacob Barrett is highly thought of as a tight end, and so I think there'll probably be others as well. But what I'm going to do, Shaun, if you're ready, I'm going to bring you in so you can be part of this conversation. And, I was worried there for a while. I'm going to get this off so I can bring you in. I was worried that you were in technology purgatory back there.
Man, it was absolutely crazy, and I hope you can hear me. I'm in my studio, so hopefully the mic's working and everything's good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'll tell you what, Mick.
Just fine.
Yeah, that's Mickey Plumley, Shaun Pryor. I'll tell you what. I've got something here that I want to show everybody. This guy's the voice of the Oklahoma City Dodgers, and there he is, strutting his stuff at the baseball field. And I'll tell you what, Shaun, you have a voice to do that. You got to be, look, what the hell are you doing here? You should be on ESPN, buddy.
I appreciate that. I get people that say that to me all the time. I tell them I've sounded like this since I was about 16, and makes it really tough. I get phone calls from strangers, and I get hung up on a lot because they just assume that I'm recording. So, yeah, it makes life interesting.
Oh, that's great. Well, it's great to have you here. In fact, let me put this up right now so you can see. I'll tell you what. Let me. I'm not doing it because Shaun's here, but he's host of Prior to the Snap with his co-host, and I'll tell you what. It is worth your time to listen. It's not a lot of stats and all this. It's just humans to human, and it's called Prior to the Snap. That's just one of the URLs on Podbean, but you do a hell of a job on that show, Shaun.
Yeah.
I'll tell you. It's great. You listen. Mickey's listened. I've listened.
I listened to it. Yeah, it's fantastic. Fantastic, Shaun. You do a great job.
Appreciate that. Hey, that's a big thing to us, is I meet a lot of people who love sports, but a lot of folks aren't like X's and O's people, and there's something special about just being able to talk to the generic fan, just the casual fan that's like, yo, don't kill me with the stats. I don't need to know all of this. Just talk to me about what's happening. So there's something really
Yeah.
just really intrinsic, to being able to just speak like you're just at a bar, just hanging out. This is what's going on. And I'm blessed that we get the opportunity to do that.
Oh, you do a great job. You do a great job. There's absolutely no question about that.
Hey, Frank,
Yes.
I'm going to log out here real quickly and log back in, see if I can improve this volume situation.
Okay,
I'm having a
okay.
very difficult time. It may be
Okay.
the 14 inches of snow here. I'm not sure, but
Yeah.
I'm going to log out, give it a second shot. I'll be right back.
Great. Okay, great. And I was going to mention also that I want to make sure I get it right. Cassie Stevens is your co-host and your main squeeze
That
all
is
together.
correct.
And I'll
Yes.
tell you, she is a force, and it comes through. Boy,
Man.
I'll tell you.
She's so opinionated. So opinionated.
Oh, it's good stuff. So, it's Oklahoma City, but I get people who ask me, I'm looking for something to listen to or watch. I'm going to recommend that from this point on that Prior to the Snap is one of them. And you hang with us as we go through the West Virginia stuff before we really get into your comment about the OUDC that is now the WVUDC. You know all about that. But I want to go back to what I put up before, because there's something here that how can I say this diplomatically, is that when someone's not very successful, we tend to think only about the fact that the person wasn't successful, and we forget that any job has a lot of dimensions to it, and you can be successful in some of those dimensions. If you look at the bottom of this chart here with the portal additions, you will see the far right column at the very bottom. In 2024, WVU was number 2 in the Big 12 with respect to portal activity, and obviously Colorado was number 1, and 14th nationally. And West Virginia had never been that high, which means that he obviously was recruiting some good players. And that feeds into this next chart. And this is where the players who were Mountaineers, who went into the portal, and what's interesting about it, and it goes back to Mark Parsons' comments about the players coming in are a group of 5 players. Well, the players, almost all of them except one, just one player, Sullivan Weedman, who's going to UMass, those players were picked up quickly, and they're all going to Power 5 schools. And if you look at the Virginia Tech's going to start a West Virginia offensive line next year. And we even lost one of our incoming, a 4-star from the 2025 class, Desinor, highly thought of. He now is going to NC State. It's not really a portal activity because he was going to be in the 25 class. But we lost a great promising wide receiver, Day Farmer, who was a 4-star last year. And as you know, Shaun, West Virginia doesn't get the 4 and 5 stars the way that the Texases do, and the Oklahomas and the Notre Dames. And so you really want to. So the point I'm making is that Brown and his staff did a really good job in terms of locating talent and bringing them in. Didn't translate onto the field every season, obviously, and in the end, but that's something to look at. And there's some names there that we're really going to miss. Hudson Clement became a real favorite. This guy Shaun was a preferred walk-on, even though he was the number 1 receiver out of high school in West Virginia. Out of the Eastern Panhandle. He's at Illinois now. And C.J. Donaldson, who literally hit the ground running his freshman year, had a monster game against Pitt up in Pittsburgh. He's going to the Buckeyes. We've got guys going to other Big 12 schools. Aiden Garnes, Arizona. You got, who else? You got Day Farmer's going to UCF. And just yesterday, I think, another favorite, Trey Lathan, is going to Kansas. And then you've got some SEC schools there with Josiah Trotter, another favorite, going to Missouri. Johnny Williams, another offensive lineman, didn't end up at Virginia Tech, but he's going to Missouri. But Mickey, your thoughts about that? The only point I'm making here is that these were good guys. They were Mountaineers. They were brought in by Brown, and obviously they're good players because it didn't take long for these guys to be picked up. Still, there are a bunch in the bottom on the right-hand side that are still waiting. A couple of them played significantly. Sad to see Ray in that group, but he's in the portal. Joseph, Jackson, the running back Anderson. But your thoughts, Mick?
Well, I hate to see Hudson Clement go, certainly. He was my prototypical West Virginia University Mountaineer football player. Was a walk-on, did not have a scholarship, came on, proved himself, won a scholarship, and then just took off like a rocket after that. Had a tremendous career. He's got, 2 years, maybe 3 of eligibility left? I think he's a sophomore this year, right? I hate to see guys like Hudson go, but you can't blame him. I mean, in today's world, seems like every player's out for, their own best interest.
Yeah.
A far cry from the days when I played back in the late 1960s.
Yeah.
But it's understandable. As he said on social media, a lot of people don't know where he came from, the work that he put in, the opportunity he's trying to create for his own life. And that has a lot to do with it with a number of these guys. Donaldson's the same way. Given an opportunity to play for Ohio State, you can't really blame the guy, can you? I mean, if you on an NFL career, which those two are certainly candidates to get to the NFL one of these days. So I hate to see him go, but I understand the reason why.
Yeah, and yet, we'll talk about this later more, Shaun. It's not just recruiting these guys like it used to be. It's the nil. It's the money. You follow the money. And you got a guy like C.J. Donaldson. You can only imagine what was flashed in front of him. And, one person said to me, he said, don't worry about it. He's not going to start. I don't think that's the issue. The issue is if you can find a way to contribute on a team like Ohio State, and you're not really interested in a coaching shift, you're going to do what's best for you. But so it's the nil issue is really, really important, and I know that's something that Ren Baker, our athletic director, has been focusing on, and it's going to become even more important. But I want to get back to the point that Zach Alley is our defensive coordinator. That's a new name for a lot of folks in West Virginia, but it's not a new name for you in Edmond, the Edmond, Oklahoma City area. So talk a bit about him from your perspective.
All right. Well, I tell you, let me start with this, okay? There's probably a new beef with Oklahoma and West Virginia because of the way this went down. So, I think back, I guess it was the Armed Forces Bowl, and OU had just lost to Navy in that heartbreaker. It's the post-game presser. Everybody's trying to come up with reasons for why is it another losing season? Zach Alley's up there, and he's talking, doing his thing, and he talks about, but we're going to do it better next year. He said all the right things. And then 24 or so hours later, all of a sudden there's chatter everywhere. We hear that Zach Alley is leaving. And my guys, you would have thought that somebody had rolled a grenade into a room full of kittens. Everybody was upset. People were so angry. They were betrayed. They said, Zach Alley has betrayed us all to go to West Virginia. I'm going to tell you something about that, though. I think you guys are getting something really special with Zach Alley. Zach Alley is getting himself an opportunity, number one, that he wouldn't get here. Being here in Oklahoma, I get the luxury of getting to watch all the great Oklahoma news, and, I get to hear all the Oklahoma sports radio. And there's been one overarching theme that I've noticed that if it was me, it would bother me if I was in Zach Alley's shoes. You hear people constantly talk about the great defensive mind that is Brent Venables, and he is, right? We can't take anything away from him. We saw what they did out there at Clemson. But constantly, you would hear people say, Brent Venables' defense. Hey, man, Brent Venables' defense is this, it's that. There are so many casuals that I talked to that didn't even know that Zach Alley even existed. They literally thought that Brent Venables ran the defense. And it is so hard I can't imagine how hard it would be to be the DC with such a strong name. Zach Alley, though, to me, he represents that young, that fire. He's what, 31 years old, right? He was 27 when he was at should have took a note on this. Was he Louisiana Monroe? Something like that. I think he was the youngest. Yep. Okay, perfect. I think he was the youngest DC in FBS. I mean, that guy has made a name for himself. He was a graduate assistant under Brent Venables back at Clemson. He's been paying his dues. If there's one thing about that defense, they communicate so much. That defense is fast. If there's that is going to be a gift. I bring up the name Deshaun McCullough. When he was healthy, he was at that cheetah position. There's been a few different guys at that cheetah position that have been so pivotal in that defense that causes so much confusion that makes an offense have to stay, what is happening? So West Virginia, which if there's one thing I've noticed in some of the research and some of the things I've watched, they try to use speed. Dude, Zach Alley is going to have y'all right. He's going to have y'all right. It's going to be awesome. And I'm not going to lie, I'm kind of glad that you guys stole him and I got to see all of the upheaval here in Oklahoma.
Well, that leads into the next thing, and that is that when I got to know Shaun, and if, by the way, some of you know that in fact I'll put my own bio up there. One of the things I do, and that's how I got to know Shaun, is that I inherited a blog called The Sports Column about 10 years ago, and it presents an opportunity for people anywhere, everywhere. Doesn't make any difference if it's the U.S. We got a lot of guys writing on Formula One, British soccer, football, etc. But it's a sports column, and through that I got to realize, and Shaun's a great contributor, had a great article recently on that OU Navy game, and then what does it all mean for Navy. Another article that Greg Christ, our co-host, read and really liked about your comments on the nil and the portal. But you're a Texas fan. That's how I got to know that. Living in Oklahoma, which is dangerous, I think you probably have state police around your house guarding you 24/7. But let's talk about the college football playoff, because whether you like it, whether you believe that it could be done better, and who doesn't believe that, and who doesn't believe that the committee should go out to lunch and stay out to lunch. But the bottom line is you got two marquee games starting tomorrow night with Notre Dame and Penn State. Notre Dame wasn't after that loss to Northern Illinois. Who thought Notre Dame would even have a winning season? That was the second game of the year. It was at home. They weren't even supposed to be where they are now. And then you got Penn State that beats everybody except the big teams. And then you got your Texas up against the team. This reminds me of the NCAA tournament about 20 years ago. They anointed Duke to win it all, and they didn't. Everybody's anointing Ohio State to win it. What are your thoughts about the college playoff games, and Mickey will weigh in on this? Which one do you want to start with, Shaun? You pick the one you want to start with.
If I can, I'm going to start with Texas, but let me say this real fast about Texas. You know what? I love my Longhorns. I drive a burnt orange Camaro. I am all bought in. But on the playoff real quick, I just want to say this. We asked for this. We had the BCS, and the BCS wasn't good enough because everybody said strength of schedule isn't in the equation and the computer isn't doing it right. And then we wanted to have a committee, and we wanted to have this 4-team deal, and we weren't happy, and we kept pushing. And look at us now. Here we are now saying, well, you know what? The first 4 buys weren't right and everything. It's crazy. It's just wild. We never know what we want as sports fans. We're so fickle.
True.
But my thought is, I get this inkling, this feeling that this Texas-Ohio State game is going to be a shootout. Obviously, I think one of the overarching themes that's going to kind of pop in here is Quinn Ewers bailing on Ohio State for Texas, but keeping the NIL bag and all of that drama back in the day. I feel like that's going to be something that we're going to see kind of played up to make it kind of a blood feud. But, we cannot deny, although we have questions about Quinn, he has at least an NFL backup, if not an NFL starter caliber arm. He's leading an offense that, there's so many explosive players. They constantly make explosive plays. Um, Texas is a force. With that said, like you said, everybody is drinking the tea. Everybody's read the tea leaves, and they believe that Ohio State, these last two games, they are amazing. Will Howard will levitate that ball, and he will only throw frozen ropes down the field. Everything is going to be perfect. I tell you, man, this one is hard. It's very hard for me because if you watch Quinn Ewers, man, if he has to throw off of his back foot, and if he has got pressure in his face, he is not accurate, as we saw with Arizona State in that pick. I mean, I don't care who you are. You've seen it. It is painful for me to say this, but I really believe Ohio State 38, Texas 28 in this game, and it is so painful for me to admit that. The Arch Manning package there at the goal line, I'd love to think that that's going to be the savior. I don't. I just don't feel like Texas has been playing with the same intensity, with the same rhythm, and with everything else that they have throughout this season. So it's Ohio State.
Yeah. You know, Mick, the news we got today, it came across ESPN that the NCAA has suspended targeting for Texas. It doesn't make any difference if they target or not, but they can do whatever they want.
Yeah. Texas has special privileges when it comes to targeting, obviously.
Sorry about that, Shaun. At any rate, but your thoughts on the game?
Worst call in the annals of college football history, in my estimation.
Yeah.
Arizona State was, I mean, what a shame to lose in that fashion. If that call had been made correctly and they'd gotten a 15-yard penalty, Arizona State would have kicked a field goal, in my estimation, and won that ball game. And we wouldn't be having this conversation about Texas. You know, what do you hear out your way, Shaun, about Arch leaving to go to Alabama? I've heard a lot of rumors about they're trying to get him to come play for the Tide. Do you hear anything about that out your way?
I have heard that. I will tell you, I'm not putting a lot of credence into that right now, just because, it's been said by several that Arch's family, they want him to stay there in Texas. They know that he's going to get the keys to the kingdom. He has so much going for him there. Of course, we also know, we are smart enough to know that money talks. And so what is it? You get 4 days after you are out of the playoff to make a decision on the portal when your team comes out. It's going to be a really interesting 4 days, but honestly, my gut tells me he's not going anywhere. That chatter has been around for a cool minute, and I will tell you, Alabama has been where everybody has said that they believe that they want him to go. Kalen DeBoer needs a miracle, and I know he would love if its last name was Manning, but I sure hope not.
Yeah. What's your pick, Mick, in that game? What do you think?
I like Texas. I'm not rooting for Texas. I'm rooting against Ohio State. I've never liked the Buckeyes. I never will like the Buckeyes. Nothing ever gave me more pleasure than watching Michigan upset them this year and beat them the last 4 years in a row. I just don't like the way they or their fans carry themselves. And I was an Oregon Duck fan all year. I go back to being a Duck fan all the way to the days when Steve Prefontaine used to run track for them back in the 1960s.
Back in the day.
So I hated to see my Ducks go down to them after beating them by one point before. But yeah, I think Texas is probably going to win that ball game. I think when it comes down to coaching, it's an even match. On the one hand, I've heard a lot of people say this year that Ohio State has the best roster that money can buy. And I'm not sure that's true because I know the Texas offensive linemen do pretty well. They get just a little bit more than I got paid as an offensive lineman back in the 60s, Frank. I've told you that story. Shaun, we used to get $20 a month to buy our Sunday dinner with, and that was our NIL money. Things have changed a little bit from back in those days. Yeah, I look for Texas to win that game. But I'll tell you this also, I look for Notre Dame to surprise Penn State. What do you guys think about that?
I actually picked Notre Dame. I did.
Yeah, they're favored, Mickey.
I'm
Notre
losing
Dame,
volume again there, Frank.
Notre Dame is favored.
Is the
Oh,
line
are
still
they?
one?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I never look at those lines, so.
yeah. Notre Dame is favored, and by the way, a little aside. I live in Big Ten country. Most of the year was at Michigan State for a long time, and so you at Michigan State we have to contend with both Michigan and Ohio State, and I don't know a Michigan State fan. You know, if they had to choose between the two, you know which one they would choose, Ohio State. But that's a whole different ballgame. What you described, Mickey, is how we basically describe Michigan fans. But what you say makes sense, and it's all a matter of perception anyway and experience. I grew up in Western New York with a lot of Subway alumni from Notre Dame. Never went to Notre Dame. A lot of them didn't go to college, and Notre Dame was the team for them. They followed. A lot of them were Catholics. And then my grandparents, both sides, were from Pennsylvania. So you'd cross the border, and you thought you were in a war zone because it was almost like Pitt didn't exist. It was Penn State, Penn State, Penn State. I remember one time making a trip down there where a couple guys in a truck really wanted to beat me up because I was at Michigan State, and there was that's not really football's. Are you kidding me? They can't play football, and you're good in basketball, but basketball's not even a sport. And so I was going to try to counter them, and I figured my life is more important than winning an argument, and so I got the hell out of there. But the problem, Shaun, is Notre Dame wasn't supposed to be here. They're extremely well coached, and the play they pulled off against Georgia was stunning. That essentially laid the foundation for securing that win. And Penn State beats everybody except the teams that should they beat, but they never win. But your thoughts, Shaun? I think it's going to be a great game.
100%. I do. I think it's going to be a great game. I also think it's going to be kind of a rock fight. You know, I think that's going to be one of those knife fight in a phone booth kind of games. You know, Penn State, if my research is correct, they have the most explosive run game in the playoff. Katron Allen, Nick Singleton are both 1,000-yard rushers. You know, it is so hard because I feel like we're about to watch a battle of attrition. Like, no joke. Just because both of these teams, especially defensively, can be so unpredictable yet not consistent offensively. Hence the NIU thing. I stand by Notre Dame because, again, I think last I saw earlier, because I checked, but it's been a few hours, I think that the line was 1 for Notre Dame, I think. And I stand by it, but man, I almost hate going with the 1 on that just because, but I'm going to stand with it. I think that Notre Dame gets it, but I think it's going to be a true grudge match. By the way, the game in so the Texas game is in Texas. I believe there's 8 to 11 inches of snow about to hit Texas, which I know. Yeah. I know my friends down in Texas have absolutely no idea what to do with the white stuff. Have you guys heard if they're talking about postponing or moving that game, or are they just going to slip and slide and hope for the best?
Well, let me. What I'm going to do is just get on the to look at the line. Let me see if there's anything on. That would be a headline. There's nothing I'm seeing so far. No, there's nothing that I see as a headline. And let me go to the. Let's see what the most recent line is. Let me see. The way they put these scores up is just absolutely crazy. You can't. You don't know where to find them. Let me see if it's at the end. Here we go. Okay, it's 1.5 now.
1.5.
1.5. It opened at 1.5, went to 2.5, and now it's at 1.5. So it went more toward Penn State today. And the over and under is 44.5. So they're looking at a lower. Yeah, but I'll tell you one thing, Shaun, and you posted this the other day on Facebook, and I responded to it. And I've talked with so many people about this. For me, the most. I'm sorry, it's something I feel very strongly about. The thing that I like most about this game, I couldn't give a damn about either Notre Dame or Penn State. I grew up disliking both. Both teams have African American head coaches, and you know I'm not patronizing you. We've got to see more people of color in executive positions, both as ADs, it's pitiful, and as head coaches. And now you got the best of the best. They've gone through the gauntlet. Both of these guys know what, no matter what you think about these two coaches, I know there's a lot of noise about Franklin in particular. They made it, and I'm glad it's getting some press. I'm really glad that has gotten press, and you've helped contribute to that.
I appreciate that. And we post a lot on Facebook, and I'm not going to lie, we make a ton of money off of doing that. So that's why we do it. But with that post in particular, it was really sad because a lot of people the amount of vitriol about it was crazy. Franklin actually said what that meant to him personally in a documentary a couple of years before. And I know I posted it with the thought process of just kind of highlighting that I know that meant a lot to him. And, it's interesting because a lot of people they said there, it's not about race. And it isn't. But it's one of those things where I know that's really special to him. He said, I want my kids to get to see this. I want for other little kids to get to see this. And while we live in a world that we are so concerned with being politically correct and making everybody happy, I think that there's nothing wrong with stopping and taking a moment to celebrate and say, hey, you know what? I was the first, and it felt pretty cool. And it's not about grinding in the fact that, he's black or whatever. No, it's just, I made history, and I appreciate that. I love to see it. I think that's really special. And I know that it's going to mean a lot to a lot of people of all races, creeds, and colors. So I love it. I love it.
Well, it is exciting. I saw nothing wrong with the system that existed 25 years ago when we had the four major bowls and a mythical national championship, but that doesn't align with generating more money, particularly for the NCAA and also for the media, which drives the money. So I understand the way it is today. But and we'll talk in a few seconds about where college football is today. Get your take on it, Mickey's take on it. I'll weigh in a bit, including the nil and portal, but there's more than that. But I agree. Timothy Green saying he thinks Penn State will beat Notre Dame. I also think Ohio State will beat Texas. Penn State finally pulls it off and wins the national championship. That would be something. And for the people of Penn State, the memory of Joe Paterno, all that goes into that, everything they went through with Sandusky, it's sort of, that was then, this is now, that would be phenomenal because a lot of people didn't believe that Franklin was the right person for that job to begin with. But let's talk about where college football is today, where it might be going, what needs to be done, and also I think into this conversation, Shaun, and you're in the middle of it, is that the presumption, and Mickey and I have talked about it, Greg and I, we've all talked about it, is that you got the Big Ten and the SEC wanting to rule college football. They would basically get the bigger portions, and the sort of the leftovers would go to the ACC, the Big 12, and who cares about the Group of Five. But the SEC is maybe not on its knees this year, but it's not in the catbird seat. And so, what are you hearing about the SEC? What are you hearing about the Big 12? I think that's maybe where we start. We're obviously concerned about the Big 12. What are you hearing? What are your thoughts about where the Big 12 is, where the SEC is right now, and where you see them going?
Let me start with the Big 12 by saying you guys have something that the other conferences don't. If there's one thing that'll get you far in this life, I would say it's likability, charisma, even if you don't know a lot, right? If you seem like you know what's going on. You guys have a guy named Brett Yormark. I just recently learned that Brett Yormark was a twin, by the way. But Brett Yormark, I call him the used car salesman of the Big 12 because Brett Yormark finds a way to jazz everything up, make everything a big deal, even if it's not, right? In a good way.
That's right.
P.S. Mad respect to Brett for standing up and saying something about the targeting between Texas and Arizona State. I'm going to say it in front of you guys. It was targeting Taffy messed up, and I'll leave it at that. But I will admit that. But let me say this. Brett Yormark, for example, you guys heard of the Rucker out there in New York, right? Rucker Park. Absolute institution for basketball. Big 12 goes up there, redoes the court, has Big 12 logos, is making a pathway to get talent. Brett Yormark tried to pull in Gonzaga at one point because the Big 12 basketball, which, by the way, SEC basketball does look good this year, but Big 12 basketball has always been a knife fight in the phone booth. Last year, it was like watching like your group of like 15, 16 friends just beat the snot out of each other. And that's Big 12 basketball. Big 12 football is still kind of finding its way, post Texas and Oklahoma leaving, finding its way, but it is something to be respected. And I think that Macho Man Randy Savage, what did he say? He said the cream always rises to the top. And that's what the Big 12 is waiting for, is to see what cream rises up to the top. BYU is up there. Colorado comes with so much flash that you can't help to put them up there. We all thought that Oklahoma State was going to be up there a year before last when we were forecasting, or were we wrong? But I think that the Big 12 has so much promise because of that I think that the Big 12 in the next couple of years, especially once that cream does rise up, we're going to see the Big 12 make a lot more noise, and Brett Yormark is going to be literally just like George Washington at the front of that ship, just pointing down the way as the Big 12 makes the noise that they have to, because you're going to have to be a lot noisier than the SEC and the Big 10 for everybody to finally say, you know what, I get it.
Yeah. Do you see anybody on the horizon joining the Big 12 and expanding it from 16?
I have thought about this, and did Boise make the decision to go to the new Pac, whatever they are? Have they made that decision official?
Mickey, I think they have.
Who's that?
Boise State.
I have not heard. I've not heard anything about Boise State.
You guys talk. This machine helps me answer questions that I can't.
I keep throwing wrenches in here. I'm sorry. I apologize.
No. This is good.
But yeah, Boise is one. If for no other reason, if you're somebody that remembers, I can't remember the year. Was it the Orange Bowl or whatever game it was, where Oklahoma was playing against Boise State and they Statue of Liberty
play. Statue of Liberty play. Beat them on the Statue of Liberty play. I'll never forget it.
Yes. There was a little ladder action, man. That was a great game.
Yeah. In terms of go ahead, Frank.
I was going to say the answer to your question is yes. It says here the Broncos will join the Pac-12 on July 1, 2026, and joining them from the Mountain West, Colorado State, Fresno State, San Diego State, along with Oregon State and Washington State. So Boise's going to the Pac-12.
Okay. I had heard rumor. Boy, they really carved them out, didn't they?
Yeah. I'm sorry, Mickey, you were going to say.
Well, Shaun, I just relocated from Atlanta, Georgia, where I lived for 35 years, back home to West Virginia. And glad that I have. I mean, for 35 years, I've been listening to nothing but SEC. Like there is no other game on a Saturday if you live in the South, if it's not an SEC game. And in terms of the future of college football, what I've heard from down there, and Frank and I have talked about this in the past, you have this one very powerful alliance between the SEC and the Big Ten that's trying to control the future of college football. But I read an article about a month or so ago also about an alternative proposal that the fellow who used to be vice president for Walt Disney World is leading this effort up. And have you guys heard about this? They're going out and they're attracting venture capital funding in the billions of dollars to totally realign college football completely, to get NIL back where it was intended to be, to create a brand new set of rules and regulations and they call it the College Football Players Association, the CFPA would be the entity, okay? It would take the Big Ten and the SEC out of the driver's seat. These guys basically with investment capital that they say they can attract because of projected television revenues that would occur from the recreation of regional conflicts and regional games, like we had when West Virginia was in the Big East, like you had when Arkansas and Oklahoma. And I can remember they had a big rivalry when I was growing up. But this organization would create a brand new entity that would basically replace the NCAA. I mean, this is a far-out concept, but I like it primarily because it cuts short the effort of the Big Ten and the SEC from controlling the future of this thing. But they would go with a more of a regional approach, and there would be new conferences established where it would be regional competition once again. It cuts down the travel expenses for all the teams. It doesn't really make sense for West Virginia to fly all the way out to Texas Tech to play a football game when we could be competing, every year against Pitt, bring Penn State back on the schedule, bring Syracuse back on the schedule, bring Virginia Tech back on the schedule. And that concept in itself seems very attractive to me if these guys can pull this off. The shame of the situation is, guys, it all comes down to that almighty dollar. Which plan creates the most revenue in terms of television revenues and puts the most money in the pockets of all the schools across America, which have to repay over $1 billion from the antitrust, or is it 10 billion? It's $10 billion they have to pay from the antitrust lawsuit that they lost. So have you heard anything about this plan, or has it only been in the Southeast that I've heard this?
Well, I have, Shaun, but please.
I have not heard that in particular. I know that I have been of the thought process that at some point the NCAA is not going to be able to keep its arms around college football. As this ball it keeps swelling bigger and bigger, and it's starting to look more professional. There's absolutely no way. And the entities that I feel like have the money to do something are the networks. And at some point, I feel like the networks are going to be the one that are in control. The networks are going to be the one when you start to see logos painted on the field of ABC or this big CBS patch on your favorite player's jersey. I feel like that's the direction that it goes because it seems like it's the most natural progression since the opening of Pandora's box.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. I agree with that 100%, Shaun. I tell you, the day's not far away when if you want to watch a college football game, you're going to have to pay for it. You're going to have to be on somebody's streaming service, or you're going to have to be on Peacock, or you're going to have to be on Prime, Amazon Prime, or you're going to have to be on YouTube. The days of free college football, I think, are limited. I think by 2030, if you want to watch a college football game, you'll pay for it.
Well, it's happening right now with in basketball. If you're a Big 12 basketball fan, Big 12 doesn't have its own network like the Big 10 and the SEC and the ACC. The Big 12 is the only, this is amazing to me that Yormac hasn't figured this out, Shaun, or hasn't done anything, because it's the only one of the Power Four that doesn't have its own network. And so you got to go with ESPN Plus. And someone said the other day, well, very few cable company systems have ESPN Plus, and I responded, you can't find a cable company because ESPN Plus is a totally separate deal. You have to pay ESPN directly yourself to get it, $100 a year, I think it is. And look what's happening with the NFL. That Steelers-Ravens game is basically off network TV. That playoff game on Saturday is on, I think it's on Amazon Prime. And so if you're not on Amazon Prime, same thing happened.
Watch it.
The same thing happened with Peacock. And And that is that once NBC got that in the Big Ten country, and NBC got the Big Ten contract, a lot of Friday night Big Ten games and some Saturday night, if I recall, Big Ten games were on Peacock only, not NBC. Some are NBC a lot, NBC and Peacock, but some were Peacock only. And I know a lot of people said, I'm not going to watch the game, or I'll go to a bar and watch it there. So yeah, we're seeing it in the NFL, Shaun and Mickey, that private equity money is coming in. The Buffalo Bills now will not be largely owned, but there'll be a fraction of the Buffalo Bills that'll be owned by private equity. There's, as Mickey said, there's already talk about that happening in college football, because dogs sniff food, and these guys, these plutocrats, smell money, and wherever it is, they're going to go after it.
They're going to go after it.
Yeah, and I think it might be a good thing in this way. The conferences, including the Big 12, will not allow the NCAA to control major college football. So let the NCAA do what the NCAA can do, and that is gather the ADs and the conference and the university and college presidents, and they can manage and lead the Olympic sports and football, basketball, other than the major brand. If the major brands want to just leave football, basketball, then find a way. Actually, I think it'll be better, because who now among us would say to my question that I'm crazy? My question is, don't you think the NFL knows what it's doing and college football doesn't? That when you look at the NFL, what it is, how it operates, the way it does things, they got their act together. You can't say that about major college football or basketball. You just can't. So I'm really, people say it's almost like pro. Well, then let the pros run it, because you can't. I was a university administrator for a long time. These people are not equipped to do this. Not at the level we're talking about. Division III, Division II, no problem. But now you're talking about wheeling and dealing with billions of dollars. And, it's got its limits. Yeah, some people you can take it so far. But then you get to the point where you say, God, I hate to say this. I can't believe it. If I die tonight, I'm going to go to hell. It's why I now enjoy watching NFL a lot more than a lot of college football, because I know what the product is. It's there. Take it or leave it. It is what it is. It doesn't try to be something it's not. It's just there. You can't say that for major college football and basketball. You just can't.
Not anymore,
You
Frank.
just can't.
Not anymore. You're exactly right.
Not
I
anymore.
tell you, I watched the FCS championship game night before last, North Dakota State against Montana State.
Two great teams.
Great ball game. Ball that I enjoy watching, and those guys are out there playing for their states, for their schools. One or two of them perhaps have NFL chances of making it to the NFL. Those guys are out there playing for the love of the game, for the love of their school. I'm sure there's a little bit of NIL money floating around, but nothing like there is in Division I. And I think my time in the future, quite frankly, is going to be spent watching FCS and Division II and Division III. Because I agree with you, Division I is going a hell of a handbasket.
It's good football. There's no question. I want to get Shannon's thoughts up here, because it's something we should have talked about. I just wrote about it today. Penn State will face a team that matches them athlete for athlete. If you think about, and this is another example, I get started here, okay? Where's my whiskey? I don't know if I should do the scotch or the whiskey tonight, but it's right here. Any rate, is that they said that's right. I drained that. Mick, when you come to Florida, you got to bring me one, because it's gone now. I finished.
Are you out?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's done. But
I can do that.
Yeah, look at Penn State. They're in the semifinals. They played a near Group of Five team in SMU. They were a big Group of Five school last year. They just happened to be a power team this year, same team. And then they played Boise State, a Group of Five. So
How fair is that?
Everybody else plays power teams. They play two Group of Five teams, and now they're going up again. And I think Shannon's right. Who knows? But I think that's one of the reasons I think Notre Dame's going to win that game. So I'm glad he brought that up.
But are we going to make a prediction here amongst the three of us on who wins the national championship, Frank?
We can do that. We're running out of time, and so we're not going to be able to talk about basketball tonight anyway. So let's do that. And then let me put Timothy's up here. He said you can get ESPN Plus through an app with Hulu Plus. Also, you get Disney, but you do have. I don't know. See, this is the thing. I mean, the thing is, then I gotta have a half a bottle of rye just to figure that out.
Just to figure that out.
I just paid my $100. I just paid my $100, and I can watch it on this. Yeah. So, at any rate, yeah, let's do that. What do you think, Shaun? Who's gonna win it all?
Who wins it all?
I'm going to jump on the train that everybody else is riding on. I know I'm going to regret it, but this is why I don't go to Vegas. I'm going to assume that Will Howard is going to be able to throw frozen ropes. I'm going to assume that Ryan Day is going to just juice his players up. He's going to tell them everything that he needs to, and Ohio State wins the national championship this year.
Yeah, that's probably the smart money. Mick?
It's a process of elimination for me. First of all, as a West Virginia fan, it's got to be horns down, so it cannot be Texas, okay? Yeah. Number two, I grew up in Parkersburg, spent a good deal of time in Parkersburg, not too far from Columbus, and I don't care for Ohio State at all, so they're eliminated. And between Notre Dame and Penn State, Penn State beat us 37 years in a row, so they're out. I'm going with Notre Dame, folks. Notre Dame winning it all. The only team that I don't dislike.
I never thought I'd be saying this growing up as let's put it this way, not a Notre Dame fan. But I agree. I hope Notre Dame wins it. In the environment in which we're in, at least it will bring back the memories of Newt Rockne and Lou Holtz, as crazy as Lou Holtz is, but he's a West Virginian. To get Notre Dame, but we'll see what happens. I'll tell you, Shaun, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you here. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope we can get you back. We'd love to have you back. We don't pay anything, though.
You know something? I have been blessed. I started out doing radio here in Oklahoma City, and every chance I get to jump on a podcast, go on the radio, do anything, I always take it. It would be a privilege to come back and to do this with you guys again. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Gotta get you back.
Yeah, he's
back,
great.
Shaun. No NIL money here, but we can get you some swag.
Yeah. Shaun, I didn't want to do this with us the first time, but we've got to do it again. And when we do it again, we got to spend more time talking about your story. This is a guy, Mickey, that at one point was homeless. Right, Shaun?
That is true. That is a true statement. That is not a lie. Yeah.
And he has the people in life I enjoy the most are people that I call, it's jargon, I'm an academic, generative. These are people who generate things. They make things out of nothing. They enjoy it, but they also have a brightness, a spirit to them, and you have that, Shaun, and that's why I was immediately drawn to you. And also I'm a little bit down this month, so if I could talk to you after the show, $500 will get me through to the those Christmas bills were very expensive, Shaun. No, but seriously, it's just it was great to have you here. Great to get to know you, and we want to do this again. And also, what I want to do is, and it connects to why Shaun was here a little bit late and why Greg didn't make it at all. And that is thank you very much, Mark. And Mark makes this show. People who've watched this knows, and Mark is with us every step of the way, and we appreciate you, Mark, is that the platform we're on, StreamYard, makes it very difficult for people to get in, and our co-host, Greg, couldn't get in tonight. And we've got to figure out why that happened. But next week, we've been planning this for months. Next week, and we got Timothy Green's. Timothy's saying congratulations to you, what you've done and what you've done with your life. Spoken by you're getting a message there from a West Virginia coal miner, so it's us on authentic as hell. Let me put this up. is next week. We're going to be expanding, and we will start next week as long as the weather holds out, because the New River Network tonight is not live. They were knocked off because of the snow in West Virginia. You're gonna still be able to watch this show the way you always have watched it, because when it's out of YouTube, it doesn't provide. There's no problem getting on, but it's when the guests and the host trying to get into StreamYard can be really a problem. So if you've been watching it on the Voice of College Football West Virginia, you continue to do that, but you're also going to be able to watch it through the New River Network, and that means the New River Network on YouTube. If you have Optimum cable in South Central West Virginia, and Mickey's a new customer, you can watch it there on channels channels 7 and 41. You can watch it anywhere in the world on Roku. You can watch it on Facebook. And if you just want to go to the net, you can watch it on Watch NRM, standing for New River Network. And so we appreciate Darren McGovern, who's going to take over the night producing the show for me. So I'll be more of just a co-host with Mickey and Greg. And we're just so sorry Greg could not be with us tonight since I think it's been early, maybe mid-November is the last time he was on. But you'll meet him next time, Shaun. So any final comments, Mickey, Shaun, and then I'll close it off.
Shaun, it was a pleasure meeting you, sir, and look forward to having you back on the show next time. And never forget, it's a great day to be a Mountaineer, no matter where you may be.
That is outstanding. Again, thank you both. I really appreciate the opportunity to have been here, had this wonderful conversation. And no matter what, whether Ohio State wins or not, hook 'em horns.
Hey, your book is going to have to be, what is this? The title of your book, your autobiography, a Longhorns fans in Edmond or something. That's not a very good title, but there's a storyline. Are there many Texas fans where you live?
No, definitely not.
No.
That's what I thought.
Hey,
Thank
I
you,
got
guys.
another commitment at 8:30, guys. I got to run.
That's all right.
See you next time.
Yeah. Thanks all of you for watching. We appreciate it. Frank Fear, for Mickey Pumley and Shaun Pryor and Greg Christ. We'll see you next Wednesday on Mountaineer Locker Room, Then and Now.
Then and
Take
Now.
care. Bye-bye.
See you guys.